do the right. Thank you. Okay. Okay. Auspicious greetings. It's good to see everyone again. Today will be our last session together. Even though it's a last class, last session, but again, like this is just an introduction to Vimalakirti Sutra, where hopefully that with this introduction, we can motivate everyone to kind of like really start reading, start going through the sutra, and in a way that this sutra, even though in some sense that it is beyond what we can conceive, but then again, Vimalakirti is from talking from the level of the Bodhisattvas, and towards the last few chapters, Shakyamuni Buddha tried to convince the disciples, including ourselves, asking us not to really worry about like what we have learned, because every one of us has different capacities, different learning. The time that we take it differs from individual to individual. Okay, so before we go into the details, the contents that we're going to wrap up the whole sutras today, let us give ourselves a moment to just bring our mind and body together, and we'll just sit comfortably. If you have glasses, can go ahead, close your eyes. Just try to relax from the top of our head all the way to the sole of our feet. Taking a few deep breaths to kind of like breathe in, taking in the oxygen, and breathing out, letting go of the tightness and tension that we might have within our physical body. So let us give ourselves a few moments to just be aware of our breathing. Now let us slowly take in 3 deep breaths, breathing in, breathing out, breathing in, breathing out, breathing in again, breathing out. Now let us gently rub our palms together. Let us cover our palms on our eyes. top of our head, of our ears to the back of our neck. Let's rub our palms together. And massage our shoulders, arms, all the way to our fingers and wrists. Okay. So today we're going to look into the last two chapters, the offering of the law and entrustments of from Shakyamuni Buddha to Maitreya Bodhisattvas. Okay, so before we look into these last two chapters, I would like to give everyone an opportunity to have a quick recap of this the whole sutra. So this is an AI generated audio that with the writings that were inputted into the software, and then it becomes like audio. So let us take a short moment to listen to the introduction and overall recap of the Vimalakirti Sutra.
All right, get ready to dive into a Buddhist text that's been turning heads for centuries.
Yeah, the Vimalakirti Sutra, it's really something else.
It really is. And trust me, this isn't your typical dry, dusty scripture.
No, not at all. It's actually got this amazing blend of like profound wisdom, but also really vivid imagery. There's paradoxes, even humor sprinkled in.
It's true.
It's kind of like if you took a master class in challenging assumptions.
Yeah.
That's what this text is.
Absolutely. And you walk away with this whole new perspective. Like you've unlocked something.
Yeah.
It's kind of like having a cheat sheet to one of Buddhism's most influential works, but way, way more engaging than your average cheat sheet, right?
Which are?
We're looking at these excerpts from the Fo Guangshan study materials, but you don't need to be preparing for an exam to get a lot out of this.
Nope, not at all. This is really about those aha moments,
Exactly.
Those big shifts in understanding, the kind that can like totally change how you see the world.
Yeah.
And your place in it.
Okay, so let's talk about our main character, Vimalakirti. And here's where things get really interesting. This guy, he's not a monk, secluded away in a monastery. Vimalakirti is a lay Buddhist. He's living right in the thick of it all.
Living the life,
Yeah. He's got wealth, he's got a family, he's got a business.
The whole 9 yards.
The whole 9 yards.
Yeah.
And he's thriving. Right away, you see how unusual this is. Because a lot of Buddhist texts, they focus on, the monks, the nuns, that path.
Right.
But Vimalakirti, he's showing us that you don't have to renounce the world to achieve enlightenment.
It's a really powerful message, yeah.
You can find it in the midst of your everyday life.
Absolutely. And, that really resonated, especially in Chinese Buddhism.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, this idea that enlightenment, it's not some exclusive club just for the ordained.
Mm-hmm.
It's accessible to anyone, no matter your lifestyle.
I like that.
Yeah, your circumstances, anything.
It's very, very modern in a way, isn't it?
It is.
Like we can all relate to this guy. And the best part is, even the Buddhist monks in the sutra, they're kind of amazed by Vimalakirti.
Oh, yeah, totally.
They recognize how much he understands, his wisdom. It goes way beyond, the rituals, the robes, all of that.
Mm-hmm.
It's something deeper.
Exactly. He's a living, breathing example that enlightenment, it's about inner transformation.
Yeah.
Not what's on the outside.
It's who you are, not what you wear, right?
Exactly.
And speaking of shaking things up, Vimalakirti gets sick.
Yes.
And here's the big twist. He gets sick on purpose.
Of course. Purposeful illness. That's our Vimalakirti.
I mean, talk about a curveball, right? What's going on here?
Right. And, it's not about saying suffering is a good thing.
No,
It's more like, imagine a really skillful parent, right?
Yeah.
They know exactly how to, push their kids to think critically.
To grow.
To really grow, yeah. That's kind of what's happening here. It's a powerful teaching method.
It's like he's saying, okay, everybody, listen up. I'm about to turn this whole illness thing into a masterclass on awakening.
Exactly. He's using this experience, this seeming adversity, to deliver these hard-hitting truths, the kind that make you stop and question everything. It's really about showing us that enlightenment isn't about avoiding life's difficulties.
Yeah.
It's about facing them head on and finding that wisdom that's hidden inside them.
I love that. One of the things I love about this text is it really throws out these like mind-bending ideas.
Oh, yeah,
Like
yeah.
there's this one part where it talks about fitting a whole mountain
Oh,
inside a tiny mustard seed.
right.
It's like, what? How is that even possible?
And that's exactly the point. It's meant to kind of shake us up a little,
Right, yeah.
get us questioning the assumptions that we bring to, well, pretty much everything.
Yeah.
And this isn't just some random image. This goes straight to the heart of non-duality.
Non-duality. All right, break that down for me.
Okay, so think about how we usually see the world, right?
Yeah.
You divide everything up.
Yeah.
Big, small, inside, outside, life, death,
Yeah.
all these opposites. But the Vimalakirti Sutra, it's suggesting that these are just constructs, like ways our minds try to categorize and understand things.
So it's not that those divisions are like wrong.
No, not necessarily. They just maybe not as rigid as we think, The mustard seed in the mountain, it's like a jolt to our perception.
Yeah.
It's about recognizing that interconnectedness. These seemingly opposite concepts, they might actually be two sides of the same coin.
That's a powerful way to look at it. And the sutra really doesn't hold back. It just throws out all these examples that turn our assumptions upside down.
Oh, yeah, totally.
Like this idea that our struggles, even those really negative experiences, can be huge opportunities for growth.
Yeah, it's kind of radical when you think about it, right?
Yeah.
And it's not about pretending that suffering doesn't exist. It's more about like recognizing the potential in it, what it can teach us.
It's like that quote, "The obstacle is the path." We can get so caught up in labeling things good or bad that we miss the lesson that's right there.
100%. And what about the idea of the Pure Land? We tend to think of that as this far-off, perfect place.
Right, like some paradise you reach after you die.
Exactly. But then Vimalakirti flips the script on that too.
Totally. He's like, nope, it's not about escaping to some heavenly realm. It's about creating that state of peace within yourself here and now.
Right here, right now. It's super empowering, right? The Vimalakirti Sutra, it doesn't give you all the answers.
Mm-hmm.
It's more about like handing you the keys and saying, you've had the power all along.
But, and there's always a but, isn't there? It's not enough to just understand this stuff intellectually, right?
Yeah.
So how do we actually live this out? How do we take these teachings and make them real?
Well, remember how we were saying the sutra's like a toolkit?
Yeah.
It's not about becoming some kind of like hermit and just meditating all day. It's about taking these tools and using them in our everyday life. With our relationships, our work, even our struggles,
Okay, so let's get practical. What are some things someone listening to this could actually do? Like, I love hearing about this stuff, but how do I apply it?
Okay, well, one really powerful tool that we can take from the Vimalakirti Sutra is cultivating a non-dual mindset. And this can be so helpful when we're dealing with difficult situations or people.
Yeah, because let's face it, life is full of those, right?
It really is.
So how does non-duality help with that?
Well, it doesn't mean that we ignore bad behavior.
Sure.
But it does mean choosing compassion over judgment. Like, how can we see the humanity in the other person?
It's like remembering that everyone's fighting their own battles that we know nothing about.
Exactly.
So maybe we can approach those difficult situations with a little more, I don't know, grace, maybe?
Absolutely. And imagine how much lighter life could feel if we stopped putting so much energy into labeling everything as good or bad, right or wrong, just letting things be.
Oh, I love that. Speaking of lightness, something that really stuck with me is this idea that we can find so much joy in just the everyday moments.
Yeah, the ordinary stuff.
It doesn't have to be this big, profound experience.
Not at all.
It can just be savoring your morning coffee or appreciating a beautiful sunset.
Yeah, those small things.
Or even just having a good conversation with someone.
Absolutely. And when we really bring our attention to these moments, they can become so rich and meaningful.
It's like instead of chasing some future happiness, you're finding it right now.
Exactly. Right here, right now, in the everyday. That's where that real fulfillment is, not off in some future moment or extraordinary situation.
It's about appreciating what you have right now.
Yes.
And, it's not all just mindfulness and appreciation. The Vimalakirti Sutra, it also talks a lot about communication.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, the whole text, it's full of these debates, these dialogues, right?
Right.
And it really shows you the power of like really respectful, open communication.
Yeah, that back and forth. It reminds me that sometimes listening is just as important as talking,
Oh, for sure. For sure.
Being able to really hear what the other person is saying, even if you don't agree with it.
Especially if you don't agree with
Yeah.
it. Right.
Mm.
It's so easy to stay in our own little bubbles.
Our echo chambers.
Yeah, surrounded by people who think just like us.
Exactly.
But when you really engage with different viewpoints,
Yeah, you can learn something.
that's where the growth happens. That's when we start to question our own assumptions and really expand our understanding. It's so important.
It really is. What if we all went into those conversations with curiosity instead of judgment, you know?
Right. What if we actually listened to understand instead of just waiting for our turn to talk?
I love that.
Imagine the possibilities. We could find common ground in the most unexpected places.
Hmm.
We could even find ourselves challenged and inspired in ways we never thought possible.
Challenged in a good way, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's a good kind of challenge. And, the Vimalakirti Sutra, it definitely challenges us.
It does. It keeps you on your toes.
It does, it does. One of the ways it does that is how Vimalakirti uses questions. Like he was a master at that. He would answer a question with another question,
Oh, yeah.
and it would just make everyone have to think harder.
Go deeper.
Exactly. He's like that teacher who knows that real learning, it doesn't happen just from like passively taking in information. It happens when you're actively asking questions, exploring.
You have to be curious.
Yes. You have to be an active participant in your own awakening,
Mm.
always questioning, always exploring, never stop learning and growing.
So, as we're wrapping up this deep dive into the Vimalakirti Sutra, we wanted to leave you with one final thought to ponder.
Okay.
Imagine, just for a moment, that Vimalakirti, he wasn't just this figure from an ancient text. What if he was your neighbor?
Oh, I like that.
You know, what would it be like to have those mind-bending conversations with him, maybe over the fence, to see how he lives his life, that quiet wisdom, that compassion, just in the everyday moments?
It really drives home this idea that the Vimalakirti Sutra is trying to tell us, right?
Yeah.
That enlightenment, it's not some distant goal, some exclusive club. It's here for all of us.
Yeah, it's accessible.
It's available right now in the most ordinary parts of our lives.
And that's a wrap on our exploration of the Vimalakirti Sutra. We hope this deep dive has sparked something in you, maybe made you a little more curious, maybe inspired you to look for those moments of awakening in your own life.
That'd be amazing.
Until next time, keep questioning, keep exploring, and keep diving deep into this incredible journey we call life.
So that is the introduction as well as an overview of what we have learned in the Vimalakirti Sutra. Talking about sickness, talking about non-duality, and talking about like the Pure Land. Where is Pure Land? Within our mind, it's right now, depending on how we live this life. Okay, and then even like the last part, where talking about Vimalakirti is us. It could be our neighbor. It could be the person next to us. Like helping us to see everything with a more compassionate and looking at everything in more positive ways of living this life. Okay, so I think that this audio can kind of like give us a recap of what we have discussed so far within the 12 chapters that we covered. Okay, so the next one that we're going to look on this like chapter 13 as well as chapter 14. Chapter 13 is basically talking about making offerings. We know that sometimes people might be wondering why in Buddhism, dana is often being emphasized a lot. Even when the Buddha first met with a lay Buddhist, okay, Yasha, okay, he didn't talk about the teaching straight away. The Buddha shared with him about the merits of giving and sharing. Okay, so with starting from dana, that we can cultivate the mindset of like whatever that we have, we can always share with others. So that is not about the idea of like making offering to the Buddha, making offerings to anyone, but it is the act of how we can include others in our mind instead of just thinking about ourselves. Okay, so in this chapter, it's mainly focusing on not only offerings, not only about giving, but also focusing on making offerings with the Dharma, offering of the Dharma as the ultimate offering. Okay, So later we're going to look a little bit in detail. So the next chapter, chapter 14, is about how the Vimalakirti Sutra concluded by how Shakyamuni Buddha entrusts the continuous Dharma sharing or Dharma propagation to Maitreya Bodhisattvas, and until the very, very end, where the whole world, every one of us discover our Buddha nature within ourselves, and where everyone, including those are suffering in different realms, will eventually realize full enlightenment. Okay, so from Shakyamuni Buddha to Maitreya Bodhisattvas realizing Buddhahood, even though it's a long time, but knowing that entrustment in this chapter, it kind of like give us a lot of hope in knowing that the Dharma will continue to within this world, as long as everyone has the right view, right understanding in what we learn about life, about practices. Okay, so this is an introduction to the two chapters that we're going to kind of like look through pretty quickly on this. So now the questions about offering of the Dharma. Okay, I'm not sure if any one of you have the question about why offering of the Dharma is considered the highest form of offering. Okay, so when it comes to offering, like, is this like in today's society, many of us try to help to provide sufficient food, clothing to those who are in need, especially like pregnant women or to children, those who are weak, those who are not feeling well. We know that this is like survival. Okay, so giving and sharing what is needed, like the food, clothing, necessities, those are as important as it is. But in this chapter, is taking us another step to look at why the offering of Dharma or the teachings of enlightenment is considered the highest form of giving. It is because when we give material things, okay, sometimes we might come across a situation where we have this mindset, this heart of like giving and sharing to that person. But if that person doesn't really like this flavor, doesn't really like this food, doesn't really like this color. Okay, so in a way that material offerings, there are still some limitation to it. There's still like people might like or dislike, and it might end up like waste. And when it comes to material offerings, whether it is food or fruits or clothing and etc., they they are perishable. Okay, the edibles, food and fruits, those are perishable. And then clothing itself, it won't last forever. It will get dirty, it get torn, and it changes all the time. Okay, so even though we know that, we try our best to help, especially those in need. But sometimes we have to know that how can we give and share the things that people really needed. Yeah, so there was one time that we have our young adults group, young adult division, our YAD. Okay, we all went to downtown where there's people assisting the homeless. Okay, PATH, PATH. So it's a tall building where they provide housing for those who are in need. They provide classrooms for those who wants to learn. And there's also a kitchen for the homeless. Okay, so for those who doesn't have shelter, we call them homeless. But when we volunteer in the kitchen, like, serving food to them, of course, that we try to like give them, if they say not that hate, we give them food, one scoop of like mashed potato, some spaghetti, and so on and so forth. But to our surprise, when they finished eating, they came with a plate that is only half eaten. and the rest of the food were being go to the green waste bin. So after that, volunteering at the kitchen in the people assisting the homeless organization, a few of our young adults commented, saying that by knowing that whatever that we have, we are fortunate because we have a roof on our head, we have clothing to wear, we have sufficient food that we cherish. But seeing that side of like how food were being thrown away, even though one might be struggling to get enough food for 3 meals, but yet the food has been thrown away. So when the young adults mentioned that to me, I know that this is really a waste, and then I felt like, because it's not part of our custom in a way that we try to cherish what we have. So in a way that I told the young adults, saying that by seeing this, then we can understand more why our founder, Purple Master Xing Yun, not only we provide what is really needed to others, especially during catastrophe, natural disasters where there was flood and so on and so forth. Of course, at the time that we try to provide shelter, to provide blankets, provide water, so on and so forth. But then long term, we try to provide education. It is because by helping a person, it is not just short term, but it is for long term. So that's the reason why in Foguangshan, not only we help those who are in need, but also we try to assist a person in the long run. Okay, so with these examples that reflect upon the offering of Dharma, it is because when a person is the necessities is not a concern, then we can also offer the Dharma, where a person can guide oneself to move towards a more wholesome life, to in a lifetime that even though we might not have a lot, but at least we can appreciate and be grateful with what we have. And of course, living righteously, that is also the key. So with all this, learning is like the Dharma that we learn, okay? The teachings that we learn from the Buddha, the practices that we learn. Okay? So that is the reason why whenever things that we listen or we heard, we practice, we have the aha moment, we have that realization. Whenever there's a right time, we try to share with others, share with our friends, and so on and so forth. This is the offering of Dharma. And sometimes because of one sentence that the Dharma that we share with others, sometimes we can change one's perspective, and sometimes we can help save one's life. Okay, so this is the power of the greatness of knowing the reality, knowing the Dharma. Okay, so there is reason why the Dharma itself, it is not perishable. It never be outdated. Okay? The Dharma is like 2,600 years ago until today. The idea of dependent origination, the reality of dependent origination, is still valid. Okay? It doesn't only valid on planet Earth. I always say that the Dharma that the Buddha has realized and shared with us, it applies across the universe. Okay, not only here on planet Earth. Dependent origination, if you look at the whole universe, everything is constantly changing. The gravity, the sun, everything is depending on all the right causes and conditions. Look at the sun. It doesn't mean that the sun will forever be the sun. It is still part of the right causes and conditions. Okay, so the Dharma itself, it is timeless. It is beyond space. Okay, so that's reason why this line here in the sutra mentioned about offering the Dhamma as the highest offering. Okay, so the next one is, why is the offering of the Dhamma considered the highest offering. Okay, so even though I kind of like elaborate a little bit more earlier, but of course, the first thing that we try to help is start with material offering that can provide temporary comfort. And then the Dhamma itself, well, when a person or ourselves, when we are relieved from the necessities or the things that we need for this life, then we take one step further in learning the Dhamma. It is because the Dhamma can guide everyone towards enlightenment. And not only that, unlike material resources that can be exhausted, the gift of the Dhamma is inexhaustible. Okay, when we share a line, when we share a verse within the Dhamma, it won't diminish. It's just like having a candle with the light, the fire. When we try to light other candles, okay, the light that we have on the candle, it will not reduce. The brightness will not reduce. The fire will not reduce. Okay, the same goes to the sharing of the Dhamma. So it's unlike the material things that we share, that is exhaustible, that will deplete in a way. And of course, when we offer the Dhamma, the true Dhamma itself, it is coming from the mind of unselfishness and a mind of like generosity and sincerity. Okay, so this is one of the reasons why the Buddha talks about the offering of the Dhamma. Okay, so basically this is the whole chapter 13 is talking about the importance of offering the Dhamma. Okay, so as we move on to the next chapter, talking about the Buddha and trusting Maitreya Bodhisattvas to continue on the sharing of the Dhamma. Okay, so I'm not sure if everyone knows about the relation between the Buddha, Shakyamuni Buddha, and Maitreya Bodhisattva. Both of them are classmates. I wouldn't say classmates, but both of them are practicing together in Tushita heaven some long time ago. So before Shakyamuni Buddha was born as a human in a human realm, but before that, both of them are practicing together diligently as Bodhisattvas in Tushita heaven. Okay, so and then when there were occasion when the Buddha in Tushita heaven started preaching the Dhamma. And after doing so, Shakyamuni Buddha, before enlightenment during that time, Shakyamuni Buddha praises the Buddha, okay, genuinely, sincerely. And that's one of the reasons why Shakyamuni Buddha was able to born as a human and realize enlightenment before Maitreya Bodhisattva. Even though during that time, causes and conditions wise, both of them are practicing together. Okay? But because of the action of like giving and sharing of giving praises as a way of sharing the Dhamma to the audience, to the Buddha in a way that enables Shakyamuni Buddha to realize enlightenment a little bit earlier than Maitreya Bodhisattva. Okay, so this is to give everyone a context why Shakyamuni Buddha suddenly mentioned about Maitreya Bodhisattva. It is because the Buddha, Shakyamuni Buddha, knows that the next Buddha, the future Buddha, is Maitreya Bodhisattva. Okay, because of that, in this chapter, the last chapter of Vimalakirti Sutra, the Buddha entrusts the Dhamma to Maitreya Bodhisattva, urging him to propagate it in the years to come. Okay, so of course, in this chapter, it mentioned about the two kinds of bodhisattvas. One is like drawn to literacy, like start to understand and learning about the Dhamma, and then one is engaging to the profound meaning of the teachings. The Buddha mentioned about the attitudes. Sometimes it's good for us to have questions, but then if we have doubts, that might lead to ego, where we start to reject whatever that we are hearing. Okay, so this is something that the Buddha wants us to be aware of. When we learn the Dhamma, it is good for us to have questions. It is good for us to think for ourselves, why, what's that, okay? But then if we have that sense of doubt, as in a way of like rejecting the profound teachings, that's not only the doubt, that's the ego that comes together. We are not having the attitude of like wanting to learn, but it is an attitude of like trying to debate, trying to challenge the teachings in a way. Okay, so for the Buddha, when he mentioned about that, is a reminder for ourselves that the need for faith. Okay, and then of course respect among each other, especially when we are practicing the Bodhisattva's path. So talking about faith, I would like to focus a little bit, explain a little bit on this. I always explain that having faith in the Buddha, or having faith in certain things, okay, it helps us to feel more confident in proceeding where we want to go to. Like, for example, why do we prefer going to restaurant A than going to restaurant B? Why do we have the preference of going to Dr. A than Dr. B? Okay. Why do we opt to use Kleenex as to blow a nose than other brand? Okay. So even though like this is something that is part of like our daily encounters, that this is like, oh well, okay. But this also brings up the idea of having faith in one brand, in one place, in doing something. Okay. So for example, doctor. Okay. Why do we want to go to this dentist, this doctor? It is because after one treatment, the doctor gave us medicine, and then it is helping. And then we keep on going back. It is because we have faith, we have trust. Okay. But then with the trust, okay, sometimes we still question, like, doctors, do I really need to take the Tylenol? Do I really need to take this medicine? But because we have the faith as a foundation, we will not give rise to doubt or rejection. Okay. The same goes to learning the Dhamma. Okay. When we practice the Bodhisattva's path, sometimes there may be questions. It's good for us to have questions. But if we have the ego that embraces our doubt, then we have to be aware of it. Okay. So, and then the next one is, like, I just take one of the paragraph that is in the sutra. Okay. It says that Maitreya, there are two attitudes among the Bodhisattvas who, though they believe and understand the profound teachings, yet do injury to themselves and are unable to accept the truth of birthlessness. What are these two? First is that of persons who are contemptuous, it's hard to pronounce this way, contemptuous of beginner bodhisattvas and will not teach or enlighten them. Second is that the persons who, though they understand the profound teachings, seize upon surface appearances and make distinction. So this two attitudes of the Bodhisattvas. The first one is that even though a Bodhisattva has just begun this journey, but because of this attitude of like expressing disapproval towards beginner Bodhisattvas, that's also the I and the ego that we mentioned earlier. And even like the advanced Bodhisattvas that refuse to teach or guide those who are just beginning. Okay, so this is like focusing on the first attitude. Okay, so this attitude harms both self okay, by fostering the arrogance and also others, that withholding the necessary guidance. Sometimes, like in workplace, uh, sometimes like in workplace, one might come across this type of people too. You might see someone who is new joining the company, and then the senior that knows everything, but yet is like holding back to teaching or mentoring this beginner here. Okay, so for Bodhisattva who just begin in this level of practice, there's still this type of attitude that we have to be aware even within ourselves. Okay, so the second attitude refers to those despite they have a deep understanding of the profound teachings, okay, but remain trapped by the superficial distinction. Okay, there's still the distinction of like you and I, big and small, and individual make judgments based on appearance, like and like for example, someone who is looking good, and sometimes someone is not looking so good. We're still attached to the appearance, attached to the things that we do, and failing to fully embody the deeper and non-duality insight of the teaching. So it's just like what Vimalakirti has been trying to bring out the idea of non-duality. It is because it is one of the crucial practice as we practice the Bodhisattvas, as we start this Bodhisattva's path. Okay, so by knowing that everything is not distinct in a way, going beyond the judgment of good and bad or nice and not so nice. Okay, that help us to understand more of the truth of emptiness and the interconnectedness of all phenomena. Okay, we are not by ourselves. We are interconnected by so many other elements that enables us to do everything every day, every moment. Okay, so in these two attitudes, okay, they are still not really bodhisattva. It still show a failure to embody the ideal bodhisattva. Is still not an ideal bodhisattva who is always practicing with compassion and wisdom, free from ego-driven judgments. Okay, so and of course that you might be wondering about the truth of birthlessness. Okay, birthlessness or birthless, okay, is in Sanskrit is called anapada. Okay, so it trying to let us understand the changes between birth, sickness, aging, and death, until when one has gone beyond birth and death, the cycle of birth and death, we will come to a stage where we understand that birth or birthless, both are beyond birth and birthless. Like, let me give you an example. Just like the wave, okay, in the ocean. So the wave, sometimes we might think that it is a separate thing, but it is not. It is because there's the wind that blows the ocean, the water, and the water is moving, okay? And because of the water in the ocean and the wind, that's why we see the wave, okay? So the wave doesn't really stop or start because the wave itself are interdependent or interconnected by the wind, the wave, the water in the oceans. So it is just a temporary pattern that we distinguished by perceiving the different shape. So anapada, or birthless, is just realizing that the wave was never a separate or fixed thing to begin with. Okay, so by understanding the truth of birthlessness is one way for us to be able to see the world where nothing is truly by itself, nothing that is truly permanent but everything are interconnected in so many different ways. Okay. So, and then the next one is talking about the faith. Okay. So sometimes like when we talk about practices, especially when a person for us to start our journey in learning and practicing the Bodhisattva's path. I'm not sure if every one of you has experienced the greater our vow in doing bigger things, in practicing the Bodhisattva's practice, in trying to put others before ourselves. The bigger our vow is, the bigger our determination that we want to start the Bodhisattva's practice, the bigger the challenge will be. The challenge is not just like what you see here, strong wind, big wave, thunder, dark clouds. But when we give rise to the Bodhisattva's vow, okay, to start this practice of compassion, wisdom, and practicing the 6 paramitas, okay, sometimes we will come across a more and more challenging situation. Like, for example, when a person starts to learn more about the Buddha's teachings, one understand that how everything changes in life. And then sometimes if we are not being mindful, we might use the term that we learn as an excuse in real life. Okay? Like, for example, impermanence. Okay, we might say that when we have a glass of water on the table, okay, and then one might accidentally knock and broke the glass. And if we understand that this is dependent origination, then we know, oh, okay, this is impermanence, it changes all the time. But then for us to really understand truly what it is, okay, it is something that for us to imagine and to really know that impermanence is not just happening just like that. Okay, and it is not just an excuse that we accidentally not being mindful that we knocked and broke the glass. Okay, so by knowing that in life, when we practice, the more that we practice, sometimes we will see ourselves more clearly. Okay, we know that there will be some side within ourselves that we don't want people to know. Okay? For example, the anger, the easy the hot temper that we have, or easy feeling frustrated, or the jealousy within ourselves, the ego within ourselves. Sometimes all this, the more that we learn the Dhamma, the more that we can see better ourselves. And sometimes if we are not determined in continuously practice the path, okay, we might lose our faith. We might lose that confidence in continuing our path in learning. Okay, so let me see, is that okay? So now the next one, okay, where is it? Okay, the next question that it is something that for us to contemplate and be aware of it is how to discover the Dhamma and our potential. Just like what Vimalakirti has mentioned, and even towards the end of the chapter where the Buddha reminded us that when we start this Bodhisattva's path, it might not be easy, but eventually one will realize for enlightenment, it is because all of us has the potential, all of us has the Buddha nature within ourselves. But the question is that how to discover the Dhamma and our potential. Okay, so I've included this a page from the Big Panda and the Tiny Dragon. Okay, And this tiny dragon was saying that, I think this is the best tea set I've ever had. And the big panda asked, why is that? Because it's the one I have now. Okay. So with this very straightforward conversation, okay, it is a reminder for ourselves that there are things sometimes we might not be aware of it. Okay, we might not appreciate it. We might not see it. It could be with us all along. It's just like our loved ones, our families, the things that we have, our ability to do certain things. Sometimes we don't discover the Dharma is because we don't see, where we might be busy with this and that. The same goes to our potential within oneself. Okay. So with this conversation between the big panda and tiny dragon, it's a reminder that knowing that the things that we have is the best that we ever have. It is because we have it. No. Okay, so how to discover the Dharma and our potential? This is the question that we should ask ourselves from time to time. Okay, and then of course it continues on how the Buddha entrusts Maitreya Bodhisattvas to continue to spread the wisdom and compassion, and until the very end of this chapter, where Ananda asked the Buddha what this sutra should be called. And the Buddha said, Ananda, this sutra should be called the Exposition of Vimalakirti. And another name is called the Doctrine of Emancipation Beyond Comprehension. Okay, so, and the Buddha, Shakyamuni Buddha, said that this is how you should accept and uphold it. Okay, so when the Buddha finished expounding the sutra, Vimalakirti, Manjusri, Sariputra, Ananda, and others, along with heavenly and human beings, Asuras, and all other members of the great assembly, were filled with joy at hearing the sharing of the Buddha, and everyone accepted and respectfully put it into practice. Okay, so this is the end of introduction to Vimalakirti Sutra. So I have listed out, what is the time now? Let me see. Okay, 5 more minutes. Okay. Okay, so let me quickly share with you the questions that even myself I ask whenever I read this Vimalakirti Sutra is, how does the concept of non-duality in Vimalakirti actually challenge our conventional distinction that we make in our daily life? And how can we apply these teachings to foster great harmony and understanding? Sometimes, like when we are being when we're doing everything every day, sometimes we might be limited with the idea of what is right and what is wrong. And especially when here in the temple, we have different volunteers coming in and out, different devotees, different visitors, different friends coming in and out from different backgrounds. So sometimes, like when they are willing to help and to put certain things certain way, and they sometimes they might feel that, oh, am I doing right? Did I put it right? And so on and so forth. And I always reply saying that there's no right and wrong. There's just right and left, or the other way. Okay. So the daily life, in our everyday life, of course, the conceptual or conventional way of our speech, the way that we communicate, sometimes we can skillfully we let people know that what color it is, whether it's big or small. Even big and small is hard to define. It's just like when I was being asked, like, is this big enough? And then the next question I always ask, which one are you comparing with? Because big and small, we need comparison. When it comes to non-duality, it's a reminder for ourselves that it is not for us to compare in some ways. especially when we talking about one's practice, when we talk about the things, how much that we have done, how much time we spend. Sometimes it is beyond the quantitative idea of the time or space. And when we practice, we won't say that I've improved this much. Okay, it is beyond quantity. Okay. And in what ways does Vimalakirti's approach to integrating wisdom with compassion demonstrate the ideal of a bodhisattva? And how can we embody this balance in our actions? Right? Compassion and wisdom. It is sometimes like when we try to be compassionate, sometimes we need to have wisdom. We shouldn't be just being compassionate without boundaries. Then sometimes we have to be able to integrate wisdom in whatever that we do. Okay, so it's something that you can contemplate about it. And the next one is the sutra emphasizes that all beings have the potential to attain enlightenment. How can this teaching influence our attitudes towards others and our sense of interconnectedness? Okay. Every one of us has Buddha nature. Every one of us has the potential to see the truth ourselves one day. So how can we, when we know this idea, when we know what the Buddha has keep on reminding us, how can we learn this and remind ourselves in our everyday life that the sense of being humble, a sense of like interconnectedness as we live in this world together. And last question is, Vimalakirti demonstrates that spiritual practice is not about escaping the world. Vimalakirti is a lay Buddhist, has a family, has work, has career, has many things, but engaging with it skillfully. How can we integrate spiritual principles into our work, relationships, and everyday responsibilities? Okay, so these are the questions that I would like to conclude on the Vimalakirti Sutra with. Is for us to think about it and for us to reflect upon what we have learned within this sutra, so that we can try to capture it, whatever that is relevant, whatever that is helpful, that we can integrate in our everyday practice. It is a good reminder where's Pure Land? Pure Land is here. But how can we, there's challenging people, difficult people that we have to face every day from time to time. You call this Pure Land? Yeah, so it is something that we can constantly think about it and try to embrace what Vimalakirti as well as our Buddha keep on reminding us about the Buddha nature, about Pure Land is right here, and how do we live this life knowing and the idea of non-duality and realizing that we are interconnected in so many ways. Okay, so because of the time, I don't have time for any questions. But if you have any questions, feel free, or any comments, you can let me know by emailing or leave a message in the classrooms, and I'll share these questions with everyone so that we can continue to contemplate as we read this sutra. So maybe anyone has any question? Anyone? Okay. I don't want to take too much of your time. I know that sometimes it takes time for us to really think and contemplate and digest what we have covered today. But you know how to get hold of me, so I don't worry about that. Okay. So let me share the screen as we will do our conclusion and dedication and merits. Okay, and if you can all join me by joining our palms. May kindness, compassion, joy, and equanimity pervade all worlds. May we cherish and build affinities to benefit all beings. May Chan, Pure and precepts inspire equality and patience. May our humility and gratitude give rise to great vows. So I hope that everyone have learned a little bit from the Vimalakirti Sutra and helpful and beneficial to your practice. And all the best as we continue our journey together in this Bodhisattva's practice. And next year, I plan to start mid of February. And as for now, I'm thinking about the Samantha Badra's practice on the 10 great vows. Okay, but I will email and share with everyone when it is confirmed. And I hope that everyone can continue practicing and discussing and learning together. Okay, so thank you again. All the best to you. Amitabha.
Thank you,
Bye-bye.
Venerable.
Thank you.
Amito.